Scratch everything. They're adding food to the Olympics. Not really, but wouldn't it be cool if they did? Welcome back. Episode 26, Daily Nourishment. Did you know that 26 is the only integer that is one greater than a square and one less than a cube? There's no way of making that sound cool. Anyway, food at the Olympics. They're not really doing it, even though that would be my wet dream if they did, if they added food to the Olympics, if they added cooking to the Olympics. Just imagine it. Me and my family are watching the Olympics on a Saturday afternoon, and I get to point out, look at the way he's fooding. Look at the way he's cooking. Look at the way he's treating those carrots. Oh my goodness, he's going to win the gold medal. It'd be pretty cool. So I think the way that we could talk about food being added to the Olympics is not realistic, but let's talk about like food as a sport. So for food competitions that we have, I think the most notable one is the Bocuse d'Or, named after legendary chef Paul Bocuse. And look, we have like trophies here that look like Oscars, but for cooking. Bocuse d'Or is a competition that happens every 4 years where they get the best chefs. They pick one chef from every country, and you assemble a team of other people from your country, and then you cook based on these different criteria that they have, and you build these super elaborate dishes with a bunch of different food, usually following a theme, and it looks really intricate. However, I think that food as competing at the highest level, like taken really seriously, it just kind of falls flat. Like, for example, the streams. I remember a young me used to want to watch these streams, and when I would watch them, they're just really boring. It's panning around with different people because the competition evaluates so much stuff. There was one time I was watching where the cameraman was focusing on one of the assistants vigorously scrubbing something in the sink. He pulled it up, it was just a pan. We got to watch someone clean something at the Olympics of food. They really need some better content. So that kind of sums up why the way that these big competitions work maybe does not work for television. How about as a competition themselves? Again, this is where we reach problems because to keep this as unbiased as possible, because they assume that chefs are the biggest nationalists known to man, they have a large panel of about 20 people judging this stuff. Now, with this large panel, it means that there's a lot of fluctuation in results because they don't all have the same taste buds, which means that a lot of the results are just kind of like, it was pretty good. Some people liked it, some people didn't, which means that you don't get very decisive judging. You don't get very decisive notes because one chef might be like, I think a little bit of salt would go a long way. And then one of the other one is like, the salt was way too much on this dish. I did not focus on the intricacies of the potatoes marriage with the carrot. And it means that you often end up with inconsistent judging. It'd be better if you revamp the format of this competition. I think instead of trying to show the absolute peak of what is possible with culinary abilities, why not instead you make it something where you get two representatives from every country, one man and one woman, and you put them in a big bracket, maybe you like a group stage or something, or you break it up into multiple group stages, and then you could do double elimination, head-to-head food competitions, kind of like a Beat Bobby Flay style, just one-on-one. Maybe they both cook each other's signature dish and then see who wins, and you have a small panel of judges that are not from that country. And then at the end, you can maybe have the people judging, they could be previous winners, and then you can have them as a panel, assuming these previous winners didn't compete. Obviously, you don't want one of them to be judging out of spite. So these have to be winners that have competed in years prior. This here could be a lot more exciting because it's 6 hours to cook. Maybe you give them 1 hour max, or maybe you give them 30 minutes, but they were allowed to prep something for 2 hours before, and then you give like a short 2-minute video showing what they did during their prep time, where they're like, I braised this and this meat, I prepared this and this stock, I peeled these vegetables, all that. That way, when you get to the actual cooking, it's just really exciting. It's just the finishing, it's the plating, it's all the stuff you actually want to see. It's like the same in a basketball game. There's a reason people watch the highlights. You don't want to see some player miss 13 different free throws. You don't want to see them miss 13 different shots. It's just not that exciting. Yes, it's exciting when you build all the narrative around it, but especially in cooking where there isn't a huge narrative for a huge audience, you kind of have to keep it a little more introductory friendly. So I think if food were to be introduced at the Olympics, total hypothetical here, I'm not pitching for it and I don't think it will ever happen. If you wanted food at the Olympics, I think it would have to be something where you're purely basing it on skills. So you have to be like a skills challenge, which honestly has nothing to do with cooking, just has to do with your speed at something. Which at that point, why is it included as a sport? But for argument's sake, we'll do it. So maybe it's you debone a chicken, you have to fully break down a salmon, you have to peel a certain amount of potatoes, and maybe you have to shuck 10 oysters or something like that. Like that kind of thing could work at the Olympics because it's a very easy thing to judge who is the fastest, who isn't. There's not a lot of variability, and I don't think it's as presentable in an artistic format like figure skating because food is super subjective and it's hard to find people who will judge stuff objectively. So that's my case for food at the Olympics. Not really, but it is kind of just me breaking down different food competitions. So I hope you got some insight out of this. Maybe you can tell people that there is a Grammy like statue of an old French chef. I don't know. Maybe they'll believe you. Maybe they won't. Maybe you show them this episode. I'll see you tomorrow.